Well, good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. It's Monday and time for another episode of Monday Mastery live at 5. We're here. I'm here in Ironwood, Michigan, and the weather was gorgeous on Saturday. We had 82 degrees. It felt really a lot like spring, even a lot like summer. Sunday, not so much. And today, it was 46 degrees, I think was the high. If it was higher than that, it was early this morning and came tumbling down the rest of the day. And I'm getting a little tired of being cold up here. It's you'd think it's still winter, or at least late fall. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you all had a great week last week and a wonderful weekend. I know some of you folks farther south down in Kansas City. Hey, Mike, glad to see you're here. Mike is a fellow Michigander, and I learned over the weekend, so that was fun. And it's where was I? Anyway, it'll be nice to get back into the Kansas City area, Oklahoma area at the end of the week and enjoy some of the warmer weather that you guys are having, and hopefully it'll still be there when I get there. Hey, Barbara, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here, and hopefully I can don a pair of shorts and get these lily white legs some color over the weekend. You know, it's and I'm just so ready for summer right now. So there you go. Again, I hope you all had a great weekend and are looking forward to a fun episode about communication. And there's so many aspects of communication, and we'll start out with being comfortable talking to your mate or talking to somebody new, and then we'll just evolve from there and see where the conversation goes and what questions come up, and we'll follow a lot of rabbit holes today. And for those of you that haven't seen me before, I'm Rick Sodebeer. I'm an author and dating coach. And I help singles make better decisions about the people they date and the relationships they get into. My mission in life is to help reduce the divorce rate, and by doing that, we reduce the emotional, physical, and financial trauma and that's inflicted on families with divorce. And then consequently, if you start doing it right, then your kids can see and generations to follow can see how dating and relationships and marriage, moving on into marriage, should work. You know, how to resolve conflicts, and there's going to be conflicts in every relationship, but how you communicate those and how you work those out is critical. And surprisingly enough, you'd be amazed at how much kids absorb. When we're making bad decisions, our kids are watching that. When we're making good decisions, our kids are watching that too. So one of the huge impacts that we can have, not only by making better decisions for ourselves, is we can role model or display good decision making for our kids, for our nieces, our nephews, our grandchildren, and it just becomes a snowballing effect. And again, the whole idea is to reduce the incidence of divorce. Hey, Sharon, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. So anyway, let's get rolling. We've got a few people here, so how comfortable is everyone? Let me see a show of hands or a yes or a no. How comfortable are you with sharing your thoughts or feelings with someone? You know, with someone that you're close to. As in a romantic relationship. And I'm not talking about family or friends. I'm talking about somebody you're dating or somebody you were married to or are married to. Hey, Lois, thanks for joining in. Lois is in Arkansas. Awesome. Thank you. Sharon, does that mean you're very? Mike says very comfortable. Brandy says very comfortable. And Sharon says me. I'm assuming that means that you're very comfortable sharing your thoughts and feelings and emotions with the other with those in that you're in a relationship with. Hey, Rod, thanks for joining in. John says, or Rod says, very comfortable once the relationship is on stable foundation. Well, there you go. And even my experience is even when a relationship is on a stable foundation, there are going to be issues, and I know even from personal experience that we tend to not want to hurt somebody else's feelings. Anybody else have that have that come across your table where you want to say something, but you're afraid of making a comment. You're afraid of hurting their feelings. Barbara says she's a work in progress. Well, Barbara, I think you're in good company. I think, at least I know I am. I think we're all a work in progress, or we should be. We should continually be working to improve ourselves and be the best that we can be and become the best mate that we can be. And to me, that's a lifelong ambition. There's always something new that I can learn, or always something different that I can do. And let's see, Brandy says, yep, it's difficult to hurt feelings, but I've tried to learn I have to do what is best for me. Absolutely. Is that a new picture, Brandy, that I see on out of Facebook? A profile picture. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so often we put off making tough decisions because we're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. And that's one of the most common things I hear that someone, and more often ladies than guys, but Brandy says, yep, it's her son. And awesome. It looks like a nice picture. We get tied up, and I've talked to, and it's mostly ladies, but I've talked to some guys about this same thing, that they're so intent on not hurting somebody's feelings. They know the relationship needs to end, or they know that there needs to be a conversation, but they're just afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. Well, and I've said this a million times, that who controls your feelings? Is it you, or is it the other person? Odds are you're all going to say that you control your own feelings. And that means the other person is going to control their feelings. So what you have to recognize is you don't have to be mean or nasty or brutal about a conversation, but sometimes you do have to be direct and just say, this relationship isn't working for me, or this portion, this is something I'm having a problem with. Can you help me with it? And if you get and then you can start to get into a conversation. If a conversation becomes heated, or you start bucking heads and getting aggressive or verbally aggressive with each other, the wise thing to do right then and there is to stop and say, hey, listen, it feels like you're upset with me, and I'm feeling upset with you. So what if we just take a step back and ratchet this down and start over and try to get on the same page, and let's discuss this issue and figure out where we can find common ground. And odds are whoever you're talking to is going to say, yeah, that's right, I'm feeling angry, and we're, it's just, I'm tired of this. So let's step it back, and you'd be surprised at the conversation you can have just by stopping and asking and just sharing how you're feeling, that you're feeling that they're aggressive, and that you're feeling that you have to be aggressive in this, and you're trying to justify your feelings or your thoughts or your positions. And sometimes it's the best thing to do is not to try to justify your position, but to stop and try to understand the other person's position. Stephen Covey, in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's his first habit is seek first to understand, and then be understood. And Rod says, I'm not sure anyone controls their feelings. We only control our reactions. Managing your feelings is a huge part of being an adult. Well, that's a great point, Rod. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, and hopefully a lot of you have learned, is that you need to stop and recognize your feelings. Feelings are going to crop up. Somebody may say something, and it's going to trigger a feeling in you that all of a sudden you're upset about something. And one of the worst things you can do is continue into a conversation or ignite a conversation when you're upset, when you're irritated, when you're angry, when you're mad. The best thing you can do is to step back for a second, or 5 minutes, or half an hour, and say, where did this feeling come from? Why am I feeling triggered? What did he say or what did she say that triggered that feeling? And then Rod is absolutely correct. Control your reaction to those feelings. Acknowledge the feelings. Don't deny them. Don't try to suppress them. Acknowledge that they're there, and then move on and try to resolve whatever it was. I can tell so many stories of being triggered by things that people say, and I come to realize that I'm feeling triggers from when I was married, or from when I was a boy, and some of the things my dad would say. And it wasn't that long ago. Somebody said something to me, and I inappropriately went off on a tangent and got very upset with the person. So I've since recognized that I needed to ratchet. I shouldn't have gone off on that person, but they said something that just triggered one of my deepest angry trigger points. and it's sometimes hard to control. So I admit it. We're none of us is perfect, especially me. And again, I'll admit that. But we learn from our experiences. So it's so important to step back when we're feeling those emotions and say, hey, listen, what's going on? Why am I feeling this? What can I do about it? And what kind of a conversation can I have with the other person about it? And not an attacking conversation. It's out. You put yourself in a position of neutrality when you ask a question like, or when they're explaining something to you, especially if you disagree with it. Well, say, tell me more about that. How did you come to that conclusion? Hey, Dorothy, thanks for joining in. Tell me more about that. How did you come to that conclusion? What information do you have that caused you to form that idea? Keep digging and asking questions, and you'll a lot of times dig down to a deeper underlying belief. And as I shared, I think last week or the week before, our beliefs are not always reality. Our beliefs are things that we believe based on circumstances or things that we have experienced, but unless they are correct 100% of the time, they are beliefs and not a reality. We might say, "Oh, my reality is that all women are crazy or all women are high maintenance," but I know that's not true. Some ladies, you might say, "All men are jerks" or "All men are cheaters." Hey, Sylvia, thanks for joining in. All men are pigs, or whatever it is, that you can't trust any guy. And when you get to a global belief like that all men are all women, or you always or you never, those are what are called global beliefs. And anytime you start categorizing any idea or any thought, you seriously run the risk of being wrong, because unless you're creating a strong belief, and there's nothing wrong with beliefs. I believe the sky is blue and the grass is green most of the time, but in the spring and in the fall and winter, the grass is brown. So it's not grass is not always green. So is all of this making any sense to you guys? Okay. Not seeing anything. I know it takes a little time here, but being able to communicate, being able to start a conversation. Mike says yes, absolutely. Being able to another important aspect of communication is being able to strike up a conversation with anyone, anywhere, anytime. And it doesn't have to be a romantic, to try to get somebody to date. One of the easiest things to do is to break the ice at an event and just make a compliment. "Gee, you're wearing a nice dress tonight. You look really great." And whatever the situation calls for. Isn't this great weather? And you can start a conversation. I started last summer, or last fall. I started a conversation with a lady, and we had a great conversation. We were standing in line at the grocery store. It was for about 20 minutes or so, and I can't remember what it was. It was a Friday afternoon, and there was a Chiefs game going on, and there was a big tailgate party weekend, and I think there was some foul weather supposed to be coming in, so everybody was scrambling and panic buying. And I ended up striking up a conversation with a woman in the aisles at the grocery store, and we ended up in line together, and we talked for about 20 minutes. And it was just a nice, fun, light conversation. It didn't mean we had a date. It didn't mean I got her phone number, although I did. and it was just the ability of creating a light conversation. And that's a key, where you just in this particular conversation, I started off with saying, "I'm not familiar with this store," and I wasn't. Can you tell me where I can find this item? And I asked her because, number one, she was right there. Number two, she looked like she was looking for stuff. And I said, "Okay, what are you looking for?" And we shared. He said, "Oh, I went by that on the other aisle." And so just learning how to strike up a conversation with ladies. If you're standing in line for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, just tell him he's dressed nice. If it's somebody you're attracted to, just tell him he looks nice today. Compliment somebody, and you'd be surprised how you can start a conversation. So that's one concept there of being able to talk to anyone at any time about anything. Dorothy says, "Of course, not good to be judgmental. Be open-minded to suggestions." Me too, Rick. I struck up a conversation at the deli in Publix last week at the hot case, getting my grandchildren dinner. Absolutely. And again, it doesn't have to be for dinner or for a date. It can be just to be kind, to be nice, to be social, and that is an awesome way to break the ice. And if you have a long enough conversation, you can get a phone number. It's not difficult to do. You can make the suggestion. Would you like to grab a drink sometime, or would you like to grab coffee sometime? Mike says, why do you think that most women would rather be approached by a man versus being the one approaching a man? Mike, I think there's a lot of tradition in that. The women that I talk to, and I don't like this term, but women want to be the ones that are pursued. And I think there's some stereotypes about that haven't quite worn off, that women that pursue are too aggressive. They come off as being aggressive, and it's not ladylike. Personally, from time to time, I love a woman to approach me. Even if it's in a casual conversation. And ladies, don't be afraid to talk to the guy. Don't make the guy do all the work. You've got to help. Guys can have fragile egos too. I know I do. And a lot of times, we would love to reach out to you, but you just might seem unapproachable to us. And so, and it could be for any number of reasons that you seem unapproachable. And ladies, those of you with strong personalities are even more difficult to approach. It takes a really strong guy to approach a strong woman. So if you see somebody, and ladies, I know, and I'm not saying going after the mealy mouth or weenie guys that are can be emotionally blown over with a feather. No, I'm talking about finding. There are a lot of good guys out there that have been beaten down so many times that it's almost intimidating to talk to a strong woman. Let's see. Dorothy says, "Well, there you go, Dorothy. He gave me his business card. You start up a conversation, and look what happens. You get his phone number, his business card, and whether you're interested or not, that's not the point at this juncture in the conversation. If you are, great. You can give him a call or give him a text and say, "Hey, this is Dorothy. We met at the hot counter at Publix. Would you like to grab coffee one day, or would you like to grab a drink tomorrow night?" And go from there. Mike says, "I'd love to. I wish it would happen more often." Absolutely. Well, Mike, it has to go both ways. We have to recognize that society still, or society in general, but women in general, and I'm not trying to paint all you ladies the same, want to be pursued. So it is on us to make that first move. Dorothy says, "We continued our conversation at the checkout." Awesome. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is you and one of you has to start the conversation. And Dorothy, I'm proud of you for stepping up, and if that was out of your comfort zone, I'm really proud of you, because a lot of times it's making contact or talking to somebody we don't know. We get afraid of saying something dumb, and then all of a sudden, they kind of look at it and say, "Oh, okay, whatever," and we're beating ourselves up big time, thinking that, "Oh my gosh, what did I do?" And 5 minutes after he's out of the store or she's out of the store, she's not even thinking about it. And you're going to spend the next half hour, a week, a month rerunning that scene again and again and again in your head and say, "Oh, I was so stupid. I can't do that." And that's not true. If you said something wrong, okay. So you said something wrong. The first word out of your mouth after that should be next. Learn to let these things roll off of you. Brandy says, I honestly feel that men were made to pursue. I'm comfortable making effort, but if a man doesn't pursue, it shows me he's not interested. Well, and there's a lot of truth to that, but I could say the same, and I can say the same thing about women. If you're not putting in an equal amount of effort, it shows us that you're not interested either. So there has to be a reciprocal effort, and sometimes the guy has to pursue more up front for the woman to feel comfortable. Ladies, you tell me if I'm wrong. But once you start talking and once you've had a few dates, ladies, you should be open to asking him out or asking if he'd like to go do something on a particular day or particular night. If there's something that you want to go to, if there's a movie that you want to go to, and I never suggest movies on a first date. That movies and dinner on a first date are there should be a law against that. Meet for coffee or cocktails and talk, get to know each other, see if there's a connection, see if there's chemistry. If there is, then proceed to lunch or to dinner. But always meet just initially for cocktails or coffee, and it's it's easy that if there's no connection, you can end it and say, it was nice knowing you. I'm just not feeling connection. I wish you all the best. And Dorothy says, not at all. I'm super friendly. Well, there you go. And but if for those of you that are a little more introverted and have a tougher time, just think of it in these terms. What is the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is they're going to roll their eyes and say, okay, whatever, or I'm married, or thank you, but no thank you. This is not, you're not in a firing squad. You're not going to be executed. You're not going to be lynched. So the worst that's going to happen is you might be embarrassed. And which one of you have not been embarrassed by something that you've said? Sure isn't me. I've embarrassed myself many times. Never out of my comfort zone when it comes to talking to interesting people. I'm very outgoing and open to great conversation. Awesome. Rod says, now that we're adults, the efforts should be equal. We're both attempting to get to know someone. The Disney fairy tale just isn't real life. That, I agree with you, and it takes effort from both sides. And one of the things that frustrates me, and this was probably about 2 or 3 years ago now. I was at a singles dinner through a church I went to at the time. And it was actually a group dinner. It wasn't necessarily specifically singles. There were a couple of us that were singles. There were a couple of them that were married. And one of the single ladies was telling us about a date she had, and how it went well. And then she started talking about, well, should I call him or? And the consensus was, yes, call him and tell him you had a great time. Follow up with him. And she ultimately shook her head and said, nope, I'm going to let him pursue me. If he doesn't, I'm just going to pretend I'm not interested. Well, don't pretend you're not interested, because guess what? That tells him you're not interested. We don't want to guess. And guys, ladies, if you're doing that to the lady, don't don't play that game. And Rod pointed out particularly well. We are adults. Let's act like it. And let's not screw around and play these high school games. Oh, I can't go out with him. I can't talk to him. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, no, don't. Just talk to him. And Dorothy says, yeah, we'd all love the Hallmark ending. Yes, that would be nice. Brandy says, if only Hallmark endings happen, Dorothy. Yep, exactly. Well, sometimes they do, but we have to work at it. It's not like we have script writers or novelists. Addie says, I'm holding out for my Hallmark ending. Absolutely. And a Hallmark ending isn't like, well, you guys tell me what your Hallmark ending is, and I'll share you what mine is. Interest is different than pursuit. That's absolutely true. I may be single. Well, that's okay, Addie. There's nothing wrong with being single. What I've found is over the years is that, and I'm just writing a piece on that now about getting into relationships for the wrong reasons, and how we end up in long-term relationships and marriages all for the wrong reasons, because we've settled or because we've thought that we can't have it all, and that we're afraid to speak up when something isn't right, or we were afraid to speak up when we were newly dating and saying, yeah, this just doesn't feel right. And we hung in there for whatever reason it was, and we hung in there for all the wrong reasons. And interest, and Brandy says interest is different than pursuit. It is, but you have to. There has to be an interest there, or there should be interest there before there is pursuit. Now, there's a lot of young people that pursue out of more of a sexual. It's all sexual, where they're not truly interested, other than a physical conquest. Let's see. Thank you, Dorothy. Dorothy says, you're funny, Rick. I hope that's funny in a good way. Hey, Lanny, thanks for joining in. Got to get through the nightmares on Elm Street to get to the Hallmark endings. I'm getting good at recognizing the nightmares, though. Baby steps. Well, Lanny, that's important, and that's part of moving on from a bad relationship, whether it's verbal abuse, or whether it's sexual abuse, or whether it's physical abuse, and verbal or emotional abuse can be every bit as damaging as physical as physical abuse. I mean, because it just beats us down emotionally. When you're told for so many years that you're nothing, that you'll never amount to anything, that you're stupid, that you're an idiot. When all that stuff piles up, I think back to the slogan, or the saying when we were kids: "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." Well, holy crap! If I would have known how words can hurt me when I never would have used that line, because they can be very, very abusive. And Lanny, I'm proud of you for taking the time on working on you and moving past those things. I hope you're taking time, and even as you date, I hope you're taking time to step back when something triggers you, and share that with the woman that you're dating. And it may not mean that the relationship is going to work, but at least the two of you can work through some things. And it may be a deal breaker, it may not be, but at least you're sharing what's triggering you, and if it's something that she can adjust in the way she talks to you, or that would be awesome. Let me take a jump back here. Hallmark usually winds up with extraordinary relationships, so I think that's what it seems like to me. Well, and yes, and we all should be wanting that extraordinary relationship. And from that perspective, yes, I believe in the Hallmark ending or the Hallmark relationship. I don't necessarily believe that's how you get there. And let's see. Brandy says, absolutely agree. I'm happy to show interest. Amen, Lanny. There you go. Lanny, they're jumping in on your side. Hey, Sylvia, thanks for joining in. And Sylvia says, you hang in there with hope in your heart and your hand. That way, when you let go, there's no regret. There you go. Awesome. Then you feel the same way when you meet someone. Absolutely. And see, and this is one of the critical parts of dating and relationships is getting healthy emotionally. So many of us, I'm guilty of it. When I got divorced over 11 years ago, I knew in my heart of hearts that 9 months I'd be with my soulmate, and I'd live happily ever after. Where that thought came from, I don't know. But it was there. And it wasn't until 11 years later that the woman of my dreams has stepped into my life. Now, does that mean we haven't had rough times? No. We've had some bumpy conversations, and that's all part of it. But we're looking forward to that Hallmark ending. And let's see. Rod says, I'm looking for more of a partner than a princess. I'm not a prince. I'm just a normal, flawed person. My grandparents always leaned into one another. That's what I would enjoy. Absolutely. They're and don't misunderstand me, their relationships were flawed also. I looked at my grandparents, and they hung out, they made it nearly 75 years. It was awesome. But then they didn't live in an era of a time of easy divorce. They stuck it out. Although when you talk to a lot of people, when you talk to my grandmother after she passed, and she would say that my grandfather could be a miserable SOB, but they managed to hang on. Dorothy says, let's see, that's what I love about Hallmark. It's the wholesome relationship. You never see the physical side, just the emotional side, which is important in a relationship. Well, that's a great point, Dorothy. I hadn't looked at it from that perspective, but yeah, you're right. And I don't watch that many Hallmark movies, but I'm assuming they leave the sex until after marriage. We all know the real way to leave an extraordinary relationship is to quit your job. See, we all know the real way to have an extraordinary relationship is to quit your job at the New York law firm and move to Camdenton, Missouri, and open a bakery with your high school sweetheart. There you go. Well, that's one way of doing it. And I lived near Camdenton, and although growing up a baker's son, I would never want to go back into the bakery business. It's just too hard. Anyway, that's a good point, Mike. That is a Hallmark ending. Let's see. Dorothy says, I don't mean to stress so much upon the Hallmark version. Well, sure, now you say that. But it's just become the theme for tonight. And Addie says, but it's a good analogy. Yes, it is. It's become our theme tonight. Is we're looking for the Hallmark ending. It was just being silly. Your comment is very valid. No, Mike, I know you're being silly because not only was I a baker's son, I lived near Lake of the Ozarks or I lived in Lake of the Ozarks for 12 years. So, Dorothy Culver, I picked a small town I knew of out of the air. I hope I didn't accidentally pick your town. I forgot Rick was from there. Well, actually, Mike, I'm from Upper Michigan, where I'm at right now, Ironwood, Michigan. And let's see, I don't know if I can do this without turning around. And Mike, if I'm not mistaken, you're in Waterford. So for those of you that we're the only state that can do this, and Mike knows. Mike is down from roughly this part of Michigan. Right now, I'm up here on the very western end of the UP. So there's a little geography lesson. Dorothy says, great one. And Mike Coleman, not very realistic, but hey, it was funny. I enjoyed it. Mike says, foot and mouth. I forgot you're the son of a baker. Mike, there's no problem with that. Good Lord, my comedy days are over. Don't apologize. I'm loving it. Let's see. Sheila says, if I could have a relationship like Hallmark, I would feel like I died and went to heaven. Well, you can have the ending. It's just the process of getting there is going to be a lot different than Hallmark. Yeah, Waterford. Okay, I hope that's what I said. Hallmark, ending equal extraordinary relationship. Absolutely. And let's get to the last one that's in here. Yes, it is. Love this segment. I truthfully only watch the Hallmark movies during Christmas. Well, there's some statistic out there that there's like 37 actors, 3 or 4 movie plots, and 112 movies in the Hallmark series, or whatever it is. It's something crazy. They all just jump from one movie to the next. You could have been the son of a preacher man. I could have. Mike could have been. So we're having a fun time with this, with the Hallmark theme tonight. But ultimately, the goal is to be able to be emotionally healthy when you start dating, and being able to communicate in a healthy, effective way, and to be crystal clear. There's really 3 pillars to healthy dating. It's being emotionally healthy. It's being crystal clear about what you want in a relationship. And we're all different. So if somebody tells you that you're crazy or that you're too picky, ignore them. They don't know what you want. They only know what they want. They only know that what would be right for them. When somebody tells you that, oh, you can't have that, that's way out of bounds. That's not right. You're too picky. You're not thinking. You'll never find anything. One of my favorite stories. I had dated a woman a couple of times, and we were on the phone one night, and the idea of being crystal clear about what I wanted, or what we wanted in a relationship came up, and I asked her what was on her list and if her list was written. She says, no, I know it in my head. She says, do you have a list? And I said, yeah. She says, is it written? I said, absolutely. What's on your list? So I read her my list. And I told her that I have about 36 or 37 things on my list. And she said, you'll never find somebody like that will fill everything on your list. Now, and I want to be crystal clear that the list is not an end all to be all. When you find somebody that has everything on your list, there's still, you still have to be able to communicate. You still have to have chemistry. You still have to develop an intellectual, a spiritual, an emotional, and physical relationship. All these, there's a lot of moving parts. But anyway, she was just giving me a hard time, so I read my list to her, and there was dead silence. I said, are you still there? She said, yeah, I meet everything on your list. And I said, see, there are women out there that will meet everything on my list. And so she admitted that she had to step back and rethink her idea that if you have a long list, that you can't find somebody that has everything on your list. I've dated several women that have had everything on my list. And it's just there were other parts missing. And Mike says, what do you think is the best way to start a difficult conversation with someone you're dating? Well, it depends on what the conversation is, Mike. But I hate is a really strong word, but I hate the words "we need to talk." To me, that's from experience. That's the death knell of a conversation. The best way to start that is something like, Mike, I want to bring something to your attention. There's what I feel disrespected, I feel hurt, or I feel, whatever it is you're feeling when you do this. You always start with the I portion. I'm feeling disrespected. I felt totally disrespected out in public today or out at lunch today when you made fun of me. And whatever it is, you always start with the I. Mike, I feel that this relationship is floundering, and these are the problems that I'm seeing in the relationship. How can we work? Are you seeing the same thing? How can we make this better? Or is it something that can be fixed, or something that can't be fixed? And just keep asking questions. Ask open-ended questions. Let's see. Rod says, not shockingly, I've never. Oh, a Hallmark movie. Jacqueline, thanks for joining in. If there's no communication, there's no hope for anything else. You have to communicate. Communication is the key. It's a no-brainer. Well, you would think it's a no-brainer, Jacqueline, but there are a lot of people that don't communicate well. I talk to people regularly that when we talk about their marriage, there was no communication. And I'd say, why were you there? Well, it was better in the beginning. Well, everything's great in the beginning because we're overcome with infatuation and raging hormones. And, the sex is probably great and you're having a fun time going out and doing things. And then you settle into routine. You don't go out and do the fun things. You may give up, if you get married, you got kids and you start giving up date nights and some of those fun things, and you develops into a pattern, and you start neglecting each other. And that's one of the things that I always encourage. If you're getting into a relationship, make sure you continue date night. Make sure you continue doing things that brought you together. Make sure that you keep in contact, that you spend some time together, just talking about each other, how the relationship is going. Jacqueline, how can I make our relationship stronger? And then when you ask that, guys, when you ask that question, or ladies, when you ask that question, shut up and listen. And if everything is reasonable, then try to do it. And you'd be surprised if he asks you how he can make the relationship better, and you tell him, well, it would be nice if you would do this. It might be something simple. It might be something as simple as paying attention to when the garbage bag is full, take it out to the garbage can. Rod says, in situation X, when Y happens, it makes me feel Z. Exactly. That's a very simple way of putting it, Rod. That's awesome. Thank you. Dorothy says, yes, I've heard that before. The dreadful, we need to talk. Then again, I've had to say, we need to talk. So I get that. And and odds are, when you said we need to talk, it was probably very close to the end of the relationship, wasn't it? And I could be wrong, but odds are that's when it's coming down to, okay, we need to hash things out and figure out how to move on. So anyway, well, we're rapidly approaching the top of the hour. I'm about talked out. We've covered the Hallmark ending pretty well tonight. Thank you for bringing that out, and I love that. I love that topic. It was a great night. Thank you, everyone, for your input. It was an awesome evening, and if you have any questions during the week, feel free to shoot them my way. You're very welcome, Brandy. And for those of you that haven't read it or haven't heard of it, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, I'm an author and a dating coach, and I have a book out called Dating Backward. And if you haven't read it, I highly encourage it. You can get it on my website at ricksodabeer.com, or you can get it through Amazon, either as a paperback or in the e-reader, their Kindle version. And it's available in either place. And so, with that being said, I hope you all have a great and blessed week. I love you all. Thanks for joining in, and I will see you next Monday. I will be back in Kansas City for a few days. And Mike says, thank you very much. Good night. Rick's book is excellent. There you go. There's a testimonial for you, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And Mike, get together with me on your Zoom call that we had talked about. I'd love to do it, and we'll roll from there. Have a great week, and I will see you next Monday for another episode of Monday Mastery live at 5.